Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock. And again on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And now, Clay, we're on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay. And behind the big board today is the producer's producer, Mr. Rocky. Clay, that was a great show last week with giant pitcher Dave Dravecki. You saw him Friday night at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes event?
He did a great job, too.
Did he really? Good.
Great job.
He's got a great testimony as far as what happened to his life after baseball and how he and his wife handled all the problems that came with the cancer and with the depression that she had.
And the surgery that took away his arm and his shoulder.
And his shoulder, yeah. Great story. Then in the second half, we had Steve Forbes.
Who's Steve Forbes?
Let's see.
Some
the guy
former presidential candidate, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
The third presidential candidate we've had on the show.
He was on the liberal side, if I remember correctly.
No. But I'll tell you what, if we had his flat tax in 1996 when he first tried to implement it, I think we'd have a totally different economy today.
The only thing I differed with him on the flat tax was he said nobody under $46,000 would pay taxes, and I think everybody has to have skin in the game if they're going to participate in this country.
I agree with that. I think there has to be some kind of skin in the game. You know, I mean, obviously, percentage-wise, quite a bit less for somebody making under 46, but but for guys like you in the higher echelon, I mean, you should pay your fair share.
That's why I'm moving to Florida.
Hey, today we've got a great show. In the second half, we have Cynthia Pollard, president of the Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
The Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, as opposed to the minor Chamber of Commerce.
No, that's the name of it, the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
You know, since I was the chairman until 2 months ago of the Greater Tehachapi Chamber of Commerce, I know how that works. So, Greater as opposed to minor Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
That's the name of it.
Is the Greater.
Yes.
Why would you spend all that time to call it Greater? Why not just call it Chamber of Commerce?
Because there's so many of them. But we'll explain that to you when Cynthia comes on.
Okay, so we can ask Cynthia that kind of tough question
Definitely,
today, right? That's
yes.
going to be our tough question for the day for her.
For you it is. I think.
Yeah. Our first guest in studio is, Clay, technically he's our boss.
He is, yes.
Yeah, because he's the program manager.
And we better be careful because he might reduce our salaries.
Could happen.
It could happen.
Let's see. Half of nothing.
Or maybe cut the show.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cut the show in half. Program manager for, for a couple of stations that we're on. Michael Benge to talk about his experience and to talk about National Victims Crime Awareness Week. Michael, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks for having me.
It's great having you on the show. And I know this is it's a tough subject, and before we get into the subject, let's talk.
It's one I know well.
Yes. Unfortunately, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been with American Media?
Since 1999. I got here in January '99, and 2 weeks later we had that big snow, and that's when that's how I can kind of remember how far back it was.
Big snow?
Yeah, we had a snow for here
for Bakersfield.
Yeah, the general manager, Tony Snyder, and myself and one other sales rep, we were the only people here because I grew up in Oklahoma and she grew up in Minnesota, and so we were the only ones who knew how to drive in it. So.
Michael, that's sort of funny because I was here then, and my employees didn't show up. But I drove around town and took pictures. I've got some great pictures.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
So I'll bring those in one day and we can share.
Now, it's funny because I live, as you guys know, 45 minutes away, which is up on top of the hill, about 3,000 feet from here, in Tehachapi. And actually, we had snow this morning. It didn't stick, but we had snow this morning. It was cold. It was in the 30s. But, for us to have 4 or 5 inches of snow is not uncommon. In Bakersfield, it's a life-changing event,
Pretty much, yeah.
So, yeah.
I was wondering why, where everybody, I felt like I was the last man on earth, driving around that day, like, what is the problem here? But, everybody was at home making snow angels and that kind of stuff.
It's funny talking about the snow. They closed Highway 5 and 58 quite a bit because of the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Where back east, for the kind of snow we get here, they wouldn't close the roads. It's just that we're not used to driving on the road, so they tend to close it when there's a little bit of snow.
Where I grew up in Oklahoma, they were closed more for black ice than anything. I mean,
right,
the buses couldn't get around on that. That's when they shut it down.
Yeah, I've had some clients unfortunately die because of the black ice, on the
rough.
back roads. So it's tough. Yeah. Oklahoma, huh?
Well,
How'd you end up from Oklahoma to California?
Well, McFarland, Oklahoma, it's all the same thing, right?
Same place, yeah. Same relatives, same cousins.
Same accent.
Yeah, same.
So
same trailer
were you in
park.
radio when you were back in Oklahoma too, Michael?
No.
What were you doing back there?
I was just growing up. I mean, age 3 to graduate in high school, and then I moved out here and back and forth a couple times. So, but I've been out here permanent since early 80s. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, since you were a kid.
Yeah.
We're having a conversation with Michael Benge, local sales manager for KERI, talking about National Victims Crime Awareness Week.
Let's talk a little bit about the crime awareness. What do you know about it?
Well, I live it every day as far as being a victim of it.
Well, let's back
what do
up
you
a
need to
second.
know?
Let's back up a second, and let's have you tell your story as far as what happened on that fateful night during the Memorial Day weekend in 2004.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, but it can be a long story.
We've got 20 minutes, so take your time.
I've got you. Let's see. My family at the time, my girls were 8, 9, and 12. And my wife, Jada, wanted to take us to Lake San Antonio. We had a brand new boat for about a month and had been out to Buena Vista, and we kind of wanted to explore different areas. And so she wanted to take us over there where she had spent a little bit of time as a teenager. And we went over on Memorial Day weekend and didn't realize that it was going to be quite so busy and so much partying, I mean, there were people running through our campsite, threatening to stab people, and there was just a lot of partying and drinking, and it was just rough. There was a lot of rap music that was not what we play over here on 94.1. It was
right.
X-rated, and I had little girls, and I said, Dad mode kicks in. I'm like, this is not appropriate for my little girls, and so we decided the next morning, as soon as we would go on the lake one more time and load up the boat and go home and come back at a better time. So we did that and had a most beautiful day on the lake. I can remember seeing my wife holding each one of my babies, as the front of the boat, and holding up the red flag when somebody fall off of a knee board or whatever.
Sure.
And so we loaded up, and we only got about a half a mile out of the park. And a motorcycle missed me on a long curve by about a foot and a half. And it was doing about 100 miles an hour. And I didn't realize, and it scared me. I looked in my left rearview mirror, and I said, oh my gosh, that guy almost hit us. And just by the time I got my head turned back to the right, we were hit head-on by an SUV at 95 miles an hour. Well, changed our lives forever. My little girls, I can't even really explain the impact in 95 miles an hour. It really is not, there's really no words for it. My little girls were severely injured, were screaming, broken backs and thumbs and collapsed lungs and internal bleeding. The engine crushed my wife, and I watched her take her last breath in my lap. And I was pinned in and couldn't help anybody. So to this day, I have severe claustrophobia just because I couldn't get out.
Sure.
Couldn't help my family, and that's, Dad's instinct is just to be able to help their family. So they airlifted us to all different places, and they airlifted my middle daughter to Fresno, and I thought she was dead. I didn't know. Couldn't get a straight answer, and so there was a lot of recuperation that went on. I was at the funeral in a wheelchair because of a crushed ankle and couldn't walk, and a lot of lacerations and injuries, and so now basically I speak on this and for several reasons. The girl that hit us was a 17-year-old drunk driver. Mm-hmm. It was her second DUI. Her first one was a 100-mile-an-hour DUI the week after she turned 16 and lost her license.
So here it is a year later, and she
borrows a car. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even end there. It gets even worse. The day of, she called her dad, and she said, "Dad, I'm headed to the lake. would you buy some alcohol? So he said, sure. Took him to the grocery store, used a credit card and paid $67 for vodka, orange juice, and beer, and loaded up an ice chest and sent them to the lake. And so, all he'd had to do is parent his child, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about
So he's a caring parent.
Yeah. He's, we call those cool parents, the ones that allow kids to drink at their house. And
Sure.
So
amazing. Let's pick up there when we come back, Michael. Okay.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.